The other thing is, if you can think that your left hand is a bass player and your right hand is a guitar player, and you keep thinking that way, and you always think that way, and you just design your brain to train your left part to learn bass notes. That means, oh, I've got to play an A now. Oh, I've got to play an F sharp now. Oh, I've got to play a C sharp now. Oh, I've got to play a D now. Oh, I've got to move exactly where the beat wants me to play because I'm the left hand. But in the right hand, what I got to do is I got to play all kinds of combination things. I got to play intervals. I got to jump around. I got to play guitar things. I got to play leads. I got to play strumming. I got to play solid chords. I got to pull chords. I got to play some melody. I got to play all kinds of things because I'm a guitar player. It puts a lot of responsibility, you would think, on the right hand. You think, well, the right hand has so much responsibility with that. How can you put so much responsibility on the right hand? Because the left hand is more important. That one note down there, that bass note, is the bottom of the chord. It's the bottom of the interval of the song. It's the bottom of the whole book. That is the feeling of that moment, that word. But remember, the left hand is playing one note or one letter, moving all over in different places, while the right hand is playing two or maybe one note, but mainly two or three or different, all kinds of clusters of notes, because the right hand is the guitar and the left hand is the bass. The bass doesn't play all these clusters and everything down there all the time. It could occasionally, but if it doesn't, it would make it muddy and it make it like and so anyways, it wants to play that bass and sometimes just hold down the note like while the right hand is going and picking and all this kind of the broken stuff and sliding and all this kind of, what the bass hand is just holding. That's the kind of separation I want to start from the very beginning of your keyboard playing. Your left hand is always going to be the bass player. Let's make it the bass player. Let's teach it to play the chord names. Now what happens? Your second and your third finger become very active and great. By the way, all this stuff I'm talking about is both hands, but mainly guitar. Right hand stuff. So I'm only my right hand. Because I'm telling you, this is right hand guitar's fun stuff. You play with your first and your fourth finger. But wait, Jim, you also said octaves are very important in the other hand, in the bass hand. Yes, they are. Because they have to play octaves a lot too. Why? Because they sound cool. Wait, if it sounds cool, should you play it? Yeah. Or I was playing an 8 solid. Cling, cling, cling. Or I was playing an 8 rocking. Cling, 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 cling. Ding, bong. All kinds of bells got to go off because this is your bass person alert. Your bass player only has to know these things. Your bass player only has to know 1s and 8s played together or rocking back and forth, but it has to know all the intervals, but it has to know these two as its main thing. The 1 and the 8. Why? Because the bass will play on or off or around or whatever you want it to do, holding longer or whatever. It will be different than the guitar part. It will be an independent brain. It will be your left hand. It will be playing either a 1 or an 8. And the 1 or an 8 will be in either a unison or an 8th, either solidly or rocking back and forth. The root is the one note that you're going to go after all the time. You're going to want to find when that composer, which just happens to be you, because you're making your own songs with the studioE KEYSongs stuff, knowledge, that root, that bottom, that note right there is what you're going to be aiming for at a certain point in time, whether you're holding it out or repeating it at the same time, or jumping from the same root to the root, whatever, but you're going to be moving in intervals back and forth like this all the time off of this root. But anyways, the point that I'm just saying is that this root is what you're going to be mainly doing in your left hand. You're not going to have to worry about all these intervals in between 1 and 8 as far as playing them at the same time. Because in a guitar player's world, You can play all these intervals at the same time. If you go into the right hand, you gotta have all these intervals possible at the same time in mixtures and combinations or whatever, and broken here, playing all this distance and all around and all this kind of stuff like that. That's the guitar part. In the left hand, clong, 1 octave, 1 and 4. Fingers 1 and 4, those solid 2 can be playing 1 and 8 in the left hand. It can be playing 1 and 8. Why doesn't this work out? This mirror image of video is so weird. This is my left hand. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it would be 1 and 8, but 1 would be on 8, finger 1, and 8 would be on 4. Because the 4th finger is what you're playing, this distance, just backwards. In the right hand, it would be 1 would be your thumb, and 8 would be your 4th finger. In the left hand, 4 would be your 1st finger, and 1 would be your left finger. But you're also playing sometimes with your left hand. You can always play just a letter like an octave, which is mainly what you play in the left hand is octaves. You don't play these short little fat intervals because they get muddy down there. But you do play octaves with strength in the letter. And anyways, you're in charge of being there at the right time because you're the beginning of the chord. So yours, the bass part, is a whole other thing we're not even talking about tonight. We're really talking about the guitar part. But let me tell you, we've talked a lot about the bass part because the bass is that important. Bass is that important. But anyways, back to the guitar part. So in the guitar part, you have these great intervals that you're playing. Remember, in the bass part, you're jumping these intervals, but you're not playing them like squishy, like a second in the bass would sound like, it's just like real muddy instead of really clear. Some intervals like a 5th is really cool in the bass. But the cool things is we got a left hand that is our bass player, and a right hand that is our guitar player. So we got a left hand that is our bass player, and a right hand that is our guitar player. Sounds like a very simple type of theory, but it's a more complicated type theory because actually what's happening is you're only thinking that always. In other words, like you're going to have your left hand's going to be a bass player. So it's going to play like a bass player. It's going to hold notes down like a bass player. Sometimes it's going to play repeated notes like a bass player. Sometimes it's going to rock back and forth like a bass player. That's going to be your left hand. But in your right hand, you're going to play more than 1 note at a time. Well, not more than 1 note, more than 1 letter at a time, which is the key of studioE KEYSongs. studioE KEYSongs. What is studioE KEYSongs? studioE KEYSongs is about letters. 3, 4, 5, 6, how many notes, whatever you want to have, it's the mainly chord. The chords are mostly in the right hand because the right hand is the chord player, because the right hand is the guitar player, because that's how we think in studioE KEYSongs. Your right hand is your guitar player. Your right hand strums a note, sustains a note, picks a note, does intervals, but then goes further and does chords, multi-noted things. These things that we're talking about, chords, are so cool because they make color and sadness and happiness and excitement and tension and dreaminess and love and angry and whatever you want, whatever mood, because chords are like books. The guitar has to play a lot more than 2 notes. It actually has to play 3 notes and 4 notes and 5 notes, and has to pick them back and forth and jump around and play melodies and everything. The left hand has to play the beginning of the chord, or the composer's note that it wants us to play as a fraction of that chord. It has to play it at that certain time also, but it's important to play that note, that 1 note, which is usually octave, playing the same like 1 and 8. That note is in the bass, and that note can sometimes hold down. That note can sometimes play more often than the melody, but it's independent. But it only has to play that 1 note. But it's complicated enough that it aims and it hits that 1 note in that octave formation, and that duck hopping back and forth, in that rabbit hopping back and forth feeling, that it does it perfectly because that bass note is so important. But it leaves the guitar to learn more than 2 notes at a time. More than 1 interval, which is an 8. Because the bass only has a 1 or an 8 that it's going to play. It's either going to play a 1, a unison, or it's going to play an 8th. It might play a lot all over the place, but it's got talking to it. It might play rocking back and forth. That's all it's going to play. In the left hand, that's what all it's going to play. Because that's in the left hand, it's the bass. But in the right hand, it's not going to play just a 1 and an 8. it's going to play a 1, it's going to play a 2, it's going to play an M3, it's going to play a 3, it's going to play a 4, it's going to play a +4, it's going to play a 5, it's going to play a +5, it's going to play a 6, it's going to play a 7, it's going to play an MHA7, it's going to play an 8. It's going to play all those different intervals. Because that's the guitar. The right hand. So all tonight I'm talking about the right hand, the guitar part. This guitar right hand has so much power, and it's so great because it's going to tell a story, you all. And it's going to give us color and everything, because those intervals are going to be so cool, but you got to see them. And then the next step, rocking into a sharping in the left part and a letter in the right part of your hand. Mostly talking about the guitar part, hand, which is the right hand. Because if you're a keyboard player, always teach this way. The right hand is the guitar player. The left hand is the bass player. They play distinctly different things. Instead of learning guitar, which a lot of people are taught in the very beginning, to learn all these chords in the left hand, no, we're going to learn bass notes, like one note at a time, but how to do it really cool. From the very beginning, decide and determine that your right hand is going to be your guitar player. So it's going to be playing the 2 notes. And your left hand is going to be playing the bass player. So it can play a beat on its own, and you can hold notes down and do completely different things in your right hand. That's how you think. That might sound impossible, but it's not if you think that way from the very beginning. You don't have all this rote playing of all these books and all this material stuff that I don't know what it means. We're just talking about touch, feel, sight. Between our left hand bass player and our right hand guitar player, and play an interval in our right hand, which is just 2 notes, and play this 1 interval in the left hand, and that's an 8. Always 8. 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. We're going to play all kinds of intervals in the right hand, guitar hand, but in the left hand, we're just going to play all 8s. All the same letter, same letter, same letter, same letter, because that's enough to concentrate on, because remember, the left hand has a lot to do with time and drumming and beats, and playing with the drummer and making sure that it hits its bass beginning note of a chord or of an interval on the correct beat, another B. All these bass things, another B, have to be B is another B, done at the correct time in the bass part via sounds. And so you want your right hand chord hand, guitar hand, to have all that option, whether it's going to be broken chords or solid chords, but you want the independence of the left hand. And the way to make the left hand independent is don't start by playing all these chords down there, because it's muddy and mushy. A lot of people in the textbooks have chords in the left hand and just a single note in the right hand. That is wrong. It's intervals played with intervals played with intervals making chords, but anyways, intervals playing with melodies in the right hand, and then just a single note in the left hand. Either a single note, like 1 note, or 2 notes at the same time, and that is an octave. Clonk, or just 1 note. Or rocking back and forth between the same note. 1, 8, 1, 8, 8, 1, 8, 1, whatever. Or just clonk together. That's the left hand. That is all I wanted the left hand to do. It's got to bottom out, bass out, beat out the chord, the interval sound. So it's critical. So I don't want to put a lot down there. I want to put just the letter it's supposed to go to at what time it's supposed to go to. But in the right hand, I want to learn all those intervals as far as what they look like. Well, what they look like are the same or both in both hands, I agree. But it's like practicing the visualization of the right hand, of here's a half step, here's a whole step, whatever. To me, it's more important than doing it in the left hand, because in the left hand, you're just going to be hopping those intervals, and you're going to be given those letters a lot. Like, oh, play an E, oh, play an F sharp, oh, play a B, oh, play an A, oh, play a D, play a C, whatever. It's going to be given those letters to you to play. Play. But in the right hand, you might improvise, you might move around, you might do whatever. It's not as beat critical and beginning of chord critical and color critical as a bass note is, which is a great thing. And a bass note has that power to really make or break a song and beat. So it's a very, 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 very critical part of the band, as drums is too.